Hello, everybody. Come on in. Hello, hello. Happy March. Office hours.
Yay.
Let us know. Hey, let us know in the chat where in the world you are joining us from. Oh, we got a good group here today. Hello, hello. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, as you're hopping on, just let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. And if this is your first live call of any kind. Hi, Violet from Shelter Cove, California. Welcome. Come in, come in. Hi, Cindy from Virginia. Good to see you. Hi, Morgan from Florida and Kanea from Big Fork, Montana. Hello. Hi, Jamie from Tehachapi, California. We got a little bit of everywhere represented today. Hi, Val from Portland. Val, are you normally in Portland? Hi, Heather from Floral City. Hello. Come on in. People are still joining. All right. Yes. Okay. For some reason, I was like, is that normally where you are? Mixed up your locations.
Oop.
Right. Well, welcome everybody. Happy office hours. Glad to see you here. If this is your first office hours call, this is pretty much a casual hour-ish for us to chat, answer questions, talk about whatever topics seem interesting to us at the moment. There's no agenda, so feel free, to come and go as your schedule allows. You can just sit and listen if you're at work or doing something else, or feel free to participate. It's not just for me to answer questions, but also for everyone to share their knowledge and experiences. There is a wealth of knowledge in this group. And so oftentimes there's a topic I know nothing about, but somebody else on the call does. So feel free to chime in or add notes in the chat if you'd like to participate in the conversation. I completely forgot to put in the email when I sent it out earlier that Jan actually asked me if she could pick my brain about healing online business question type stuff. I don't even know all the questions.
Spiritual business entrepreneur.
Spiritual business entrepreneurship. And I said, of course. And we were going to do that offline. And then our schedules got changed around this week. And we decided we're going to do it towards the end of this call. So if that's a topic you're interested in, I think we'll save it for like maybe the last 15 minutes. And then if we go over, that's fine. So we might run a little bit long, depending on that conversation, but just wanted to give you a heads up that we were going to chat about that today. So
that's what my questions are pertaining to. So that's perfect.
yay. Okay, good timing. Perfect. Well, we will well, we'll see where the conversation goes before then, but whenever it seems right, we'll hop in and get into that. So hopefully I can answer some questions on that topic. So with that, does anybody have any particular questions or topics they want to kick us off with? You can always put things in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, whichever you prefer.
I have something.
Yes, Marie. Oh, I heard you and now I can't hear you.
All right. I missed the last two, the previous times when you went to different people's home. And I'm curious to see, you have more people coming in to do the work. Okay. And are there things that you've noticed as a group in the work that everyone's that's coming across and what you're hearing?
Like the types of things that we've been working on in the properties, any themes? That's a good question. I'm trying to think if I haven't, usually it'll, catch my attention if we have kind of like repeating things. That being said, with a month in between them, sometimes I forget the details. So
Yeah.
there's nothing jumping out at me right away. I would say we've had a few that connect with water lately, but I don't know if that's ever not been the case, right? Like water always seems to figure in
Right.
pretty big. Anybody else think of anything that we've had that's been on the last few calls?
Hmm.
Any themes that have been showing up? No. Yeah, I guess not at the moment. But good thought. Are you noticing themes and things that you're coming across right now? Is that what you're asking, or just curious?
No, I was just more curious. Yeah. Yeah. More curious.
Yeah.
I was just thinking another vein that probably runs through regularly is the trees asking for help. Seems like that's pretty consistent.
Yeah, or having been disturbed, you know,
Mhm.
in some way and
Right.
wanting assistance in that way. Yeah, for sure. All right. Who's next? Unless you have more questions, Marie.
You know, I was just in Seattle and went to the Washington Park Arboretum, the giant sequoias. I mean, everything's blooming. The cherry trees in the quad at the University of Washington, full bloom. I mean, nature's it's just beautiful. Everything's
Spring
just
is springing.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
Yeah, and happy equinox. Spring
Yeah,
equinox.
good point. Happy
That was
equinox.
this week.
Been so busy running around, I almost forgot.
I've just been getting a lot of good earth bubbling up, energy, just like that, creator spirit in the earth, just bubbling up, wanting to share. I've wanted to mirror it several times this week and, to my advantage.
Yeah, yeah, it's been good. I just noticed today, I looked out and the whole kind of fields and out and around me are all covered in these little white blossoms everywhere. It's so pretty. And I was like, was it like that yesterday? I don't know if it was like that yesterday. It just happened all of a sudden.
Yeah. Well, I have a generalish question. And
Sure.
I've been needing to ask this for a couple of times. And I know whether we do earth healings or human healings or animal healings, we all ground. We have to ground and connect. and I guess I'm old enough to have been around with Barbara Brennan. I don't know if anyone's heard of Barbara Brennan, Hands of Light. She was in the 80s and stuff. And she did grounding through what she called the Hara line, the Tantien down to the earth, back to the Tantien, up to the soul seat, and then the connection source. Yeah. And so, but that is feeling a little, I'm just going to say it, 3D to me. I'm wondering if anybody, and I do ground to the earth, sending my roots down and teaching people how to do that, because we're just so buzzing in our head all the time that just to be grounded is helpful. But I ground to the earth, but I'm just wondering, is anyone grounding somewhere different, like the crystalline grid or the crystal in the earth, or what's your experience? How are you obtaining grounding?
Yeah, I shifted in the last couple years. I used to do more of like into the core of the earth, like a very specific chord.
That's Barbara Brennan. Yeah.
That was okay, yeah. And at some point I started feeling like that was almost anchoring me to like a specific location or a specific idea or specific timeline versus like the general earth energy. And that's when I kind of shifted things into just really feeling into the earth in general. And I don't know, I mean, when I say that out loud, I'm like, how is that any different? I'm not, I'm not totally sure, but it really, yeah, there was something about it that was just feeling, not wrong, but just like, I don't know if that's quite where I want to attach myself. And I more so just want to like feel into the earth where I'm at and kind of root in and then feel that energy come back up rather than like really anchoring in somewhere specific.
And so you're not really associating any of the crystalline grid or any of the a
Not
crystalline
specifically,
anchor to?
unless I'm trying to connect with it specifically, like, oh, I want to connect with that to meditate with it or to receive messages or whatever, like then I would connect with it. But when I'm just generally tuning in to either do a meditation or a journey or, connect or whatever, yeah, I'm envisioning it more like, roots of a tree where I'm just kind of like anchoring down, just down into the earth where I am and like feeling that energy and then like really connecting and pulling that energy back up. But yeah, it's been a couple of years now, so I'm trying to remember like what was the specific reason that I felt like I didn't want to do that, and I can't remember now exactly what it was. But it just felt like it was a shift to do it in a different way.
Well, and I'm also wondering about others healing, whatever kind of healing you do or meditation or connection. How are you grounding these days? How do people do it? You guys?
I was doing the core as well, but I've noticed it's more time consuming to me for some reason. Like it feels more energy consuming and time consuming for some reason, and it takes a different focus a lot of times away from what I'm trying to do. So I have been doing the same thing, just grounding in the earth of where I am. And it's so funny that there's synchronicities today. Someone was asking me, do you tap into ley lines or crystalline grids to do the energy work? And I think that I'm feeling similar, like just intuitively, just doing the basic grounding and then connecting with source and then just kind of letting the experience take me where it takes me versus having to overcomplicate things. And I think that's one thing that I love about Earth Tenders Academy is everything's much more simplified and it just makes more sense to do that once you're doing the energy work.
Yeah, and I think as with everything, right? Like our intention is the most important part. And so the method isn't as critical as what we're intending to do in the process. And Violet just asked if I would share again what I do differently, and just that instead of feeling like I'm dropping a cord all the way to the core of the earth, I imagine myself more like roots of a tree, just kind of like grounding down a little ways into the earth just so I can feel that earth energy and then pulling that energy back up. That's what to me. And Cindy has her hand up.
So what I do based on my sound healing training is always an awareness of the central channel and the energy flow in both directions, but to inhale deeply and filling the core, like the abdomen and up, and then exhaling down through the central channel, down through the feet, and just into the earth. Not so much focusing on what aspect of earth or what part of earth, but just sending the energy down and out as like a discharge.
Yeah, to me, once I make the connection, I can feel it in my body. And so it's a matter of like feeling the energy come in. Usually I kind of start moving, a little bit, like feeling that connection and that vibration. And then I'm like, well, I'm grounded. I feel that connection. And Marie says in the chat, to the other Marie, I change it up depending on what's going on. Sometimes I ground to the center of the earth or ground through the roots of the trees, down and out. Yes.
And also it just seems like to I can't remember who said this, but that it's more complicated than it needs to be, that we've come to a place where the veil is thinner, we have more access to intention, and that we can make more of an instant connection. And that's why it's, again, it feels like it's outdated or too much or 3D or something. I'm not choosing the right words and I don't mean to be snooty about it, but that I think I don't know. It just seems like we're making it too hard in a lot of times.
Yeah, that's my sense definitely when I pick up some older books sometimes or information, and it was valid and correct and useful and needed at the time.
Yep.
And I just think like collective consciousness has just shifted that much in this period of time. And I feel the same way. I'll read it and I'll be like, whoa, that feels complicated, right? Or like way more steps. But if the energy on Earth was denser, it would have taken more steps to kind of get into that feeling, that vibration, and make that connection.
Absolutely. And I don't mean to denigrate Barbara Brennan at all. She opened the doors for a lot of people. But yeah, it was in the 70s and 80s, and the density is less now. So yay.
Yeah, exactly. All the work of everybody who has contributed.
Yeah.
And Grace says in the chat, I'm glad you brought up different types of grounding. I've been feeling ungrounded, but then when I try to ground, I feel like I've already done it. I've always grounded by sinking my feeling of myself from my head just down toward my feet. Like I'm grounding into my body more than I am into the earth. Oh yeah. And hematite has always been useful for that. Yeah. Yeah. Crystals can be really helpful too. Yeah. Cool. Good conversation. Anybody else want to share?
I love it. Any other grounding crystals? I like jasper. That's so earthy and grounding. But anyone else? Hematite is great.
Rose quartz.
Oh, I heard two at once: rose quartz and something else. Grace says my sister likes agate. I have, I don't perceive it as using it for grounding, but I have like a bar of selenite that I keep on the floor under my desk, and I put my feet on it anytime I'm doing readings or that type of thing. And it's more, I think of it more as like clearing any energy that moves through as I'm doing the work, even though I, do the other steps as well for clearing.
What is it that you have a bar of?
Selenite.
Selenite.
I love
Yeah.
selenite.
And it just feels good to like have my feet resting on it, when I'm sitting at my desk.
Yeah.
But a couple of people say in the chat tourmaline. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Like black tourmaline, yes.
Yeah, very clearing and grounding.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking the question. That was a good one. All right, who else has something they want to chat about? Yes, Donna.
Hi.
Hi.
So yeah, I wondered whether people have had experiences with bees or other insect visitors. I had this encounter with a bee the week before last. It's been very, very wet in England for a long time, and it was like the first sunny day, and like suddenly there was a honeybee, the first honeybee I've seen. There's been a few bumblebees brave enough, but anyway, this honeybee came out, and it came and landed on my shoulder, which I thought was kind of cool. And then so I said hello, and then it flew off, and then it came back and landed on my shoulder again, and I was like, oh hey, you really want to kind of chat? And it flew off, and then it would come back, and sometimes it would come back and hover in front of my face, like really close to my eyes, and then like fly away again. After like 30 times, I couldn't count anymore. Like over the space of like 15 minutes, this same bee just kept coming. And I really wanted to make sure I was listening, but I'm new to this work, and I somehow felt like my mind was getting involved. I was saying like, what do I need to hear? And I was getting confused, like with maybe just feeling like I was making it up. And so I just thought I'd pay attention to what the bee was doing. And she was like rubbing her forelegs together and sweeping them over her eyes, and over her great big eyes, which reminded me of like, before I journey, I put oil in my hands and I sweep that up over a similar kind of motion. And I've also, to regulate my nervous system, rub my hands together so they're hot and put them on my eyes just to calm me down. So it sort of felt a bit familiar, this gesture. But what was really, really fascinating, apart from the fact that her body was really hairy like a bee, like a bear, which I thought was really cute, and I'd never noticed that. But what was crazy was that in her forehead she had this like glowing disc, like a sun, like an iridescent slightly bluish, like sun, like shining from her head. And I was like, oh my God, it's like the bee's third eye, like trying to get me to wake up mine. That's what it kind of like, wake up, like open your eyes, like all your eyes. Anyway, I looked it up afterwards, like what this thing could be, and I didn't realize that bees have 5 eyes. So, like, not the 2 massive ones. They've got this triangle of eyes, this ocelli, like simple eyes, and they are used for navigating by the sun. And that is exactly what it looked like. It looked like this little sun. That's their kind of GPS system and keeps them in balance. So, I mean, there's lots of messages that I could read from that, from my life, about how to get things in balance and how to kind of keep things clear. But I just wondered whether anybody else had had any experiences like that before, or like any interpretation of what, like, I might have missed this like amazing messenger was communicating to me, or I don't know, just asking and sharing.
Yeah, I agree with Marie in the chat says The Song of Increase. It's a book called The Song of Increase. Will answer so many questions about honeybees, and it's a short, easy to read book. It's a magical book. It's a combination. It's written by a natural beekeeper, but she has channeled with the bees and included all of these channeled messages about how the bees see and navigate and what they're really doing and how they're engaging with the plants and the trees and the earth. It's really, really beautiful. So I would definitely suggest that as well. Grace says, sounds like she was cleaning pollen off of her. You said all the things I was going to say. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts? I've had lots of interactions with honeybees, but they've been very specific messages to me that for me, the last couple of years, especially, they've all been tying back into this ancestral research that and healing work that I've done with the Mormon church, because that's very connected to honeybees. So that's usually when they come to me.
When I mean, obviously you share lots, Amy, already in all of the work that you do. I'm new. I feel like a real newbie, and I find this difficulty with discerning, like, I compare attention, you know, I can pay attention to like what I see in a journey, or what I feel in my body, or, in this kind of interaction, like what I'm actually sort of seeing. I feel like there's this whole other level of maybe it is coming through, I'm just not trusting it, or like if anyone has any tips of like how to like not dismiss information, because I feel like probably more information is there. I just somehow block it and I'm like, oh no, that's just me. And I bat it away before I let it kind of arrive. I
I
wonder
think we
whether
all do that to a certain extent, or sometimes just not even notice. I will say that sometimes it's hard sometimes in the moment especially when you're having those little magical moments with nature or whatever, that I don't always get the message or understand it like right in that moment. And if it feels really important or specific, I'll go back later that day or the next day and actually sit down and do a journey and ask at that time, like, what was the message that was coming through for me? So that way I'm out of the moment of it happening and, kind of trying to assign meaning in that exact moment and just see what comes through, hours or, a day or two later. Yeah, and Val says it takes time and practice. Be patient with yourself. Yeah, it does. And these messages, right? Like very rarely are they super clear and super specific, like in the moment. A lot of times it's in the unfolding, right? So it'll be like a bee today, and then you'll see it again in a couple of, days, or a few weeks later, you'll get some other message, and it's like they build and they mix and they match, and 6 months later you go, oh, I got it, right? But it was like you didn't have all the pieces and all of the information at that time, and it just takes time to put it all together. Yeah, Jamie says, I found that journaling without any judgment or corrections, then looking back later, then you'll see the connections and the correlations. Yeah, very true. Very true. I always kind of feel like a dummy when I have like because it feels like, oh, I should have seen that, right? I should have known that originally, but for whatever reason, pieces. Yeah, we kind of have to take it easy on ourselves and let it times.
Thank you.
Anybody
Thank you.
else? Yeah, his hand's up. Jan's hands up.
Well, and if you think about the nature of the hive, this is how I interact with the bees. Not one bee has all the information. It's the nature of the unity consciousness that communicates. So each one doesn't have to have the full picture there, as the whole hive equals the whole picture. And I love that. I get,
So true.
love that part.
Yeah. Yeah, Grace says in the chat, I feel that. I think a lot of intuitive information comes to me way faster than I expect. Like before I finish asking the question, those are the ones I've been in the habit of batting away. Lots of times it does eventually come together over a long time though. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and how many times have you had, even just like an intuitive reading and you walk away going, I knew all of that, right? Like there wasn't any, big parts of the information that I didn't know, but sometimes it's like hearing it from outside of ourselves validates it in a different way when really like it was there. We had it, we knew it. It was easy to dismiss.
Can I just add something to that? I want to say that a lot of times when I get messages, I don't get words. And a lot of times I hear that like, we don't use words. I get symbols. I don't know if anybody else gets the same thing. And if I don't understand something, sometimes I will just close my eyes and be like, send me a symbol. Because most of the messages, like I said, that I get, I mean, if my guides are there with me, they'll talk to me and they'll tell me things. But a lot of times, like just going out or closing my eyes or whatever, I'll get symbols. Do a lot of people get that too?
A little bit I get
No.
symbols, but I know a lot of people do. Yeah, symbols, or we've talked on this call before, colors, right? There's a lot of people that really only receive colors and then trying to discern what does that mean? Trying to assign meaning to something that isn't your right words. We want the words to translate into our mind. Yeah, Marie says we have to trust our messages that pop in. Yeah, that's a practice in and of itself, right? Saying like, okay, did I just make that up? Maybe, but maybe it's also true, right? Maybe that's why I made it up, quote unquote. And I think, the same with doing readings, right? Is that even if you think you don't know, or it's coming in a way that you can't necessarily assign words to with symbols or colors or, those types of things, feelings, is to practice making a story up, right? Like, okay, I don't know what's happening, so let me just make up a story. And what you might find, especially when we do the readings where we can compare notes, is that the story you made up has a lot of elements of what everybody else was picking up because you were still tuned into the energy, right? That's where the imaginary story came from, was the energy still coming to you. So sometimes that's a good practice to do if you're feeling really stuck or frustrated, like I'm not getting anything or I'm not getting anything useful. That you just get in the habit of making it up and seeing what comes through when you do that. And Therese says, lately mine have been super specific fairy tale and pop culture guidance. A few weeks ago, I was directed to watch a very specific episode of Northern Exposure, LOL. I haven't seen that show in a long time.
What was that?
What's that?
Go keep me safe, please.
Oh, you're breaking up, Kay. Can't quite hear you.
Oh,
Emily.
sorry. I wasn't, it must have gone on.
You were
I didn't have a
offline?
question.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
Emily says, my favorite show. Yeah, I remember loving that show. I haven't seen it in a long time. Must be streaming somewhere. All right, who has another question? Oh, Jamie says, I've heard that too, that words are not needed and almost a laugh is heard. I don't get symbols. I'm shown connections, two things and how they work together versus colors, words, or symbols. Yeah, this is such a good conversation to have in general, because this is, what I always share about on the welcome calls when we have new members, is that what I'm doing and how I'm showing you to do things is only one way, because a lot of this is about experimenting and figuring out how information comes to us. And so it's really hard sometimes not to get hung up on, oh, I can't do it like that. But you have a very specific way of doing it, and it's just a matter of figuring out first what that way is if you don't already know, and second what the shorthand is, right? What's the interpretation? And sometimes that can take a while because you have to have enough of the experiences to be like, oh, purple means this, or this symbol means that. And so unless you have some guide stepping in to give you the table of the the explanation, which usually we don't, it's really a matter of trial and error and experimenting and doing it enough times to develop that system for yourself of what it means. So yeah, the more you get to do it, the more you can kind of tune into how it works best for you, because it might not work best for you to do it the way that I do it. My intent is to show you like the framework, like here's the big picture, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and now that you know what we're trying to accomplish, how do you get from A to Z? And it might look very, very different than the reading in the way that I'm doing it. So Violet says, this is the second time someone referenced that show. I tried watching it but couldn't get past the third or fourth episode. Maybe I should skip ahead. How funny. I know, has it aged well? Had to be what, like mid to late 90s? Logan, jump on in.
So I have like, I think two kind of interrelated questions. I'm trying to, so since I started the course and started joining the calls, definitely like the visionary side that we focus on here has become like a lot clearer for me because I used to work in a slightly different way and it's helping a lot. And one of the things that I'm struggling with though a little bit is I'm starting to see the importance of connecting with the guardian of the land as like a important first step. And I'm kind of for some reason I'm having a little bit of trouble connecting with what the guardian is like. And I wonder, because I know it's different every time, but do you have any pointers for how to like spot, like what I'm sort of seeing it as like something that's sort of usually over the area that sort of feels like it's over the whole area. And I wonder if it tends to have this almost angelic quality, because that's kind of what I'm seeing. And just one other little thing to contextualize the question is like, there's a place that I'm working on now where I sort of see this amorphous presence, and I can sort of tell that it's probably the guardian of the land, but it's a little bit hard to go very far with it because I'm sort of looking at this mass and I'm like, it looks like a guardian figure. So anyway, any hints on how to work on that or tweak that?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. I think, first of all, we have to think of them as it's a collection of energy, right? That then can show itself to us in a way that we are going to pick up the energy. And so um it may look differently to different people, and some of that's just our own interpretation, and some of that's maybe what it wants to talk to us about or share with us specifically. But I think of them as very shape shiftery type energies. So it doesn't necessarily bother me if I tune in one time and it looks like one way and another time it looks that called in the guardian, and it was for a portal that was in her bedroom. I was gonna say, I'm getting a message, my internet's unstable and I saw I'm freezing. Am I back?
Yeah, you said that there's
So I was saying there was a woman who had asked about, she had called in the guardian spirit for a portal that was in her bedroom. The portal couldn't be closed, but it was letting in some low vibe energies. So she was doing some work with it, and in the meanwhile had called in a spirit to take care of it. And her daughter, her young daughter, was very, very clairvoyant. And the whichever spirit it was that she called in, maybe it was a snake or something, scared her daughter. So it was like, as soon as she called the spirit in, all the activity stopped, right? So it worked, like the spirit was doing his job. But her daughter was very scared of it. And so she tuned back in, did another, journey, and just asked if the spirit could show itself in a different way. And so it shifted to being an eagle or something or whatever. And her daughter was fine with that. And that was fine. But there was like this in between couple of days where she told the snake to go away, right? And so it was a very funny thing to see how well it worked, because it was like low vibe spirits coming in, the snake showed up, the low vibe spirits stopped, right? She sends the snake away, the low vibe spirits start coming back right away. She, asked for it to come differently. Now it's an eagle, the spirits stop again, right? It was like, wow, it really works. And always good when you have, someone so clairvoyant that can actually see them. But a perfect example of, it was probably the same quote unquote spirit, right? The same energy was there, but it can show itself in different ways if you don't like one of them, right? So from that perspective, I don't think we have to get too connected or hung up on how they show themselves. I also, in talking to enough people kind of who've done these meditations or done these different things, I think they also come to us in a way that, like, as a being that we would understand and expect. Because I've had people say, oh, the spirit was an XYZ, and I'm like, I'm Googling that. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, right? I've never seen that before, but they've never showed themselves to me like that. I wouldn't know a name to describe them as, right? But this person did. They knew what it was, and that's how it showed itself to them. So I think sometimes, like, when we ask, like, is it angelic? Is it what, like, whether or not that connects with our own understanding of protective or overlighting beings.
Yeah.
Maybe, perhaps, that might be my sense. So I don't know. Does that connect anything for you?
Yeah, I'm kind of experiencing it as like layers. Like there's this very ethereal, angelic type presence over a certain area, but then also that it's sort of like, kind of like you're describing, it kind of condenses into like an image that can communicate, or like a symbol, or something that mediates that a little bit. And I'm kind of surprised at things that show up. Like I'm in South America. I'm in Argentina, and I'm near the water, and like suddenly there'll be this presence of these whales, and I didn't realize that whales are important in this part of South America. And so I don't know if that struck me in the moment as like guardians of the land, but it did feel like extra help from the ecosystem, from a very wise being.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, there's a part of me that's kind of filtering and labeling a little bit, maybe more than necessary. Um, but
But I think
something,
that's okay, right? Like, I don't think there's a lot of harm in that if it feels like, ooh, this is a being that I recognize and connect with. Cool, right? And that might be what they are recognizing as well. Like, oh, you'll
you'll
recognize
understand
me as
this.
this, right? Or my, qualities as this. And so they're able to come through. Like, if you know what an eagle represents or what a snake, like, those are kind of easy ways for them to communicate with us. So,
Okay.
and I don't know what's everybody else's experience when they connect with kind of keepers or guardians or
Yeah, like, is it very clear who it is and what they're doing, or does it tend to be more um big?
shapeshiftery
Yeah.
or energy. Sometimes, even for me, sometimes I'm like, I don't know, I didn't see anything, but there was like a form of energy there. And sometimes they come through really looking really in a specific way.
Mhm.
I think it's different for every place for me. Um, like I just did a reading where it was a indigenous man, and he actually like grew in size. So he went from like a regular sized human to a giant, I think just to illustrate how powerful he was. But I think that everybody has, it can either definitely be through our own filter, like as far as like I'm very clairvoyant, but some people have smell and sound. So it's through your personal filter, but also it's how those spirits want to show up. And then it's like the mix of the two. So honestly, I think as long as, the work's getting done, it's not necessarily super important how they show up, but usually I do have pretty defined beings whenever I'm doing readings.
That's really helpful also because of course that makes sense that you're having to open up and be flexible according to the place. Of course, that makes perfect sense. Like it's hard to systematize it in your head if you know that every time you're going to another place, it's a different reality showing itself. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we get hung up on like, I'm seeing an animal in a location that doesn't make sense, right? Like I'm in Montana, but it's an armadillo and there aren't armadillo. It doesn't matter, right? It's like
Yes,
it represents
absolutely.
something and it doesn't always match the physical location.
That's
Yeah,
one of
I'm
the
a
biggest learnings
Virgo.
that I've gotten from the group that we do is that, because I don't do land readings a whole lot, but I notice that when people come in, they just say it, and maybe there's a little bit of overthinking. You ask the first thing that you see or sense, that's it. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to run it through your logical brain.
Yeah.
But I'm always so impressed when people come up with, oh, it was an ant or an aardvark or a fairy, or they know quickly. They ask and they know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Emily asked in the chat, do we see a difference between the keepers and the guardians? I mean, and I wasn't sure how you were using the term either. I guess I switched between the two. I see the keeper as like kind of that overlighting being over a larger area than like just your home. That's kind of more like, I don't know what the right term would be for that. They're like the governor of the state, right? They kind of oversee everything that's going on, but where the guardians are more active, like protective type beings. That's how I use those terms specifically. And then Marie said maybe human legs and an animal head when we were talking about the different how they show up. Jenny Lee says I tend to have an animal turn up. Marie says sometimes human, but usually animal. They're so kind. Yeah. Marie says giants did once exist on Earth. Again, trust what comes through. Exactly. And Therese says, for me, it's usually human or something that would be found in that landscape. Although one time it was Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny. Yeah, sometimes it's like that. It's really funny. Those are the ones that I second guess. I'm like, Elmer Fudd, what are you doing here?
Can I just throw in one last little Virgo
Yeah.
question? I'm sorry, this is how, because I have that structured energy about things that I sometimes find that I'm also like not sure where to start. Like there are times when I'm paying more attention because I have a lot of experiences with just very literally listening to the land. Like I'll be walking, like there's nothing more to it. Just like I'll be in a certain place and it just feels like the land talking. There's nothing else. There's no other process happening. And
Right.
so sometimes when I go to work in a place, especially places that are very, very damaged, there's this part of me that I was like, oh gosh, where do I start? Do I start talking to the guardian or the keeper? Do I start just observing? And I notice that can be a little hard for my Virgo brain.
Well, I'm a double Virgo, so I understand.
Right.
This is why I have a form, right, that you can fill out.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And I have similar experiences where you're right. Sometimes I'm just on the land. It's just like the messages are just dropping in and they're not coming from like a specific being who has stepped forward, who's having a conversation with me. And it's just kind of a free flowing conversation. But I would say when I'm like specifically doing a reading and I'm tuning in, and I'm especially if I'm like, whoa, there's a lot going on here, or I'm feeling a lot or whatever, that's when I'm more methodical about calling forward the keeper of the land, being like, what's most important? What's the number one thing, you need me to see, do, experience, whatever. And like going through that and being like, okay, that's done. Now, what's happening over here? Why am I feeling that?
Yeah.
Then I'll be more methodical about kind of peeling back those layers and picking things apart, especially in a place where if somebody's telling me like there's a lot of problems or activities or sickness or, like, lots of spirits in my house, whatever, because usually when it's like really energetically chaotic, 9 times out of 10, it's not one issue, right? There's like 5 things going on. And so you're like, okay, layer number 1, let's get, all right, we got that. Now layer number 2. And so it is a more methodical process. Grace says Virgo rising, hard to keep from overanalyzing. Yeah.
That helps me a lot, though. I really appreciate that because that kind of feels like where I'm headed, which is like where it's kind of like the main step is to go to the guardian, and I'm a triple Virgo, so I really appreciate that.
The triple Virgo, oh my goodness, even more so.
Sun, moon, and ascendant. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Emily says, when I ask something to change into a form I recognize or can work with easier, they adjust immediately into something I'm comfortable with. 100%. Yeah, that's what I've noticed too. So if it's something like scary or gross or just overwhelming sometimes, like a really overwhelming, overpowering energy, you can be like, I got the message. You can just tone it down a little bit. And they usually do that. So Teresa says, I took the cartoons to be an expression of the energy of their character, not literally. Yeah, I think so too. Val says, yes, definitely. Sometimes I think they show up for what's best for us too. Yeah. And Violet says she's also a Virgo. Also want to do it right. Yeah. Violet has her hand up.
I have a little
Hi,
comment today. I have a little comment.
Oh, yes. Jump in real quick.
I remember you saying, Amy. Yeah, I remember you saying, Amy, that you used to heal just by driving the highways. Remember, you were guided to drive certain interstates,
certain highways.
And
yeah,
that was healing just by doing that. I feel like a lot of times when I'm just walking in the woods and humming or toning, I'm healing just because that's my intention. And I don't have to look for deeper, I don't have to look for beings or the guardians of the land. I'm just taking a walk and healing.
yeah, you completely 100%. Yeah. There's so often that's all that's needed. That's all they need us to do. So, and yeah, Grace says, yeah, I've heard of the term spirit hiking. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And that's very true. I've been in this town that I'm staying in. They had me when I first got here do some work in a crystal grid on the town square, and I'm staying on one side of the town square, and then like the highway, I have to drive past it to get to the highway to get out. And so I just there was nothing else after that first thing, but I'm like, I keep driving back and forth and back and forth and back and forth past this little town square. And so I think kind of the same thing's happening. All right, Violet, jump back in.
Well, this is kind of like probably a really newbie question, but something that always comes in my mind whenever I'm doing any kind of healing work. And I always have to like say a prayer, but it's like, what if I'm gonna mess things up? Like, what if I'm like working with the ocean and then it causes a tsunami or something? Then I have to calm myself, or I have to like, for the highest good, be powerful yet gentle, and like kind of, I don't know if it's calming my own anxiety about it. Like, I want to make a difference, but I also like don't want to like tip the scales or something. And I feel like it's a dumb question, but that's just what's there for me.
Not a dumb question. And I think we all wonder those things sometimes, right? Like on the one hand, we doubt our power. And then on the other hand, we see examples sometimes of what happens when we do energy work, and we think, oh, maybe I'm too powerful, right? Like maybe it's too much. But yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like intention is so, so important. And so when we set out our intention to begin with, like we're not going to mess it up or do something wrong. And even if I'm trying to think, like I had a scenario once where I was doing a reading and I communicated with an energy a little bit, and then I can't remember if I did any work with them or just had a conversation or whatever. But anyway, after the reading, I was like, I don't think I should have talked to that spirit. Like, I don't know, something about it like didn't feel right after I finished it, and it was really bothering me. And I felt the same way. I was like, did I mess something up, or did I let that spirit into my energy, or did I, and like I kind of worried about it. And then I just went back in and opened everything back up and, reconnected and cleared all the energy and, made sure. And I think from that experience, like there's nothing we can do that we can't go back and undo if we, like I don't want to say that we can't cause a tsunami. I guess perhaps we could, but probably like our intentions aren't really ever in a place where we're going to cause like that, rip in space time that's going to set off the balance of the entire earth, right? Like that's not the place that we're coming to with this work, and that's not the intentions that any of us have, I would assume, behind this work that we're doing. And so we are participating just as the spirits are participating, and it's all one big ecosystem and one big balance. And so just feeling confident, and some of that is our own just practice as well, feeling confident that like I'm always going to know exactly what to do in the moment. Whatever I choose to do or don't do will be the exact right thing that's needed in this place, and really kind of feeling into that, that comfort that us making these efforts are so far from messing it up compared to, right, like a lot of people going through their lives every day and the way that they're interacting with the plants and the trees and the earth, that is so much more damaging than any of the things that we're doing with any of our intentions. Does anybody else have thoughts on that? Val, yes.
I just want to say that I think my higher self always takes the lead no matter what. And then I also trust my team. So, yeah. And I do have a question about businessy stuff next.
Yeah, are we getting there? Actually, so first of all, in the chat, Jenny Lee said, I just did a 12-day road trip and was guided by whale the whole way. Lots of water healing in the rivers. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. Does anybody else have any other pressing questions? Otherwise, we're going to shift into Kanea. Yes, I was going to say we'll shift into
pressing. It's not pressing, but I just was waiting to say how fun. I didn't get to finish the replay, but how fun to hear everybody, because everybody got a hit.
Yeah.
It was so fun and amazing of what they all got. And I just want to take notes and maybe sometime be able to talk to everybody again about it on a chat.
Yeah. Are you in the Facebook group?
I think I am. I don't go in there, but I'd like to start going in. So.
Yeah, that would be, I know everybody really loves hearing feedback after we do property readings, and we don't always get to hear like what happens afterwards or what kind of things happen as time goes by. So if you've had a property reading from the group and you have, feedback or things that have happened or interesting notes from your reading, like feel free to share them in the Facebook group, because everybody really loves to hear what happens afterwards.
Okay, that'd be great. I'll do that. And also my friend, I don't know if you remember, I mentioned Bill, the man that came here and we surveyed the land, and we surveyed the ley lines and the portals.
Yes.
Well, he called me last night, and we talked a lot, and it was very interesting, but he wants to send us a little package in an email for a land for us to go remotely view and see what we get on it. Do you mind me sending that to you when I get the package, when I get the link of the place?
So what?
It's a secret, huh?
He wants us to remote view a location where he is.
It won't be his land. It's a place that he said that we'd be really interested in. He's gone to, and he's connected with the land spirits and stuff, and he just really thinks it's something that would really be fun for us. And I just thought, would anybody be interested in that? And I would send the link to you, and you could send it out to us.
Yeah, you know what? Well, you could do that if people just want to do it kind of as a one-off. Or I was going to say, if you fill out the form again with that location when you have it, then we could, potentially bring that forward as another group reading in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
thank you. I guess that's it for now. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Emily says, if I have a fear of messing up, it's always put to rest by how excited every spirit is to have me reaching out and asking to do the work. They make me feel like I'm doing it right. And Val says, yes, this very true. That is the case. They usually are very excited or get excited when we say, I don't know how to do that. Show me how to do it. So good feedback on that. Yeah. And Cindy says, I'm about to make an offer on a house. Very exciting, Cindy. I'm excited for you. Any advice from an earth tender perspective? So if it's on the market, you can tune in and do, a whole property reading with the spirits there and ask them all of your burning questions and see what comes in. My guess is it probably already feels really good to you and they're already welcoming you if you're feeling like you want to make an offer, right?
It feels pretty good. I'm really nervous though.
I bet. Oh my gosh. Well, I will probably be there with you in the next week. We'll
Well,
do it together.
yes. Okay. It's exciting.
Yeah, wonderful.
The market's really hot. Competition is stiff. It went on the market at 7 this morning. I saw it at 10:45 and I'll have an offer in tonight.
We'll send you all the good vibes.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the good. I always figure we have the upper hand with the spirit pulling all the strings in the background.
I tried to get the spirits to pull for me and then I went and saw the place and it was, oh no, I should wait until after I've seen a place before I ask for help.
I know, right? Yeah. I have had them tell me before when I'm looking at something online and I'll say, is this the place for me or what? And they'll say something like, if you want it. And then I see it and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want it.
Yeah. And I missed the announcement about your rental. So if you want to share any tidbits on that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a funny one because I looked at it and then was told to wait. And a week later, they dropped the price on it. And I was like, yeah. So
that works.
Yeah, they dropped the price and they added like a bonus for like $500 off the first month's rent. So I was like, oh, that's why they told me to. So that was a funny example where you're like, wait, okay. And then it was just I was supposed to wait, or it was in my benefit to wait. But yeah, I am it is not something I would buy. It's not, but I'm like, it's a rental. It's fine. Yep. It's a brand new house and new subdivision, which also feels weird to me. That's like, oh, this was like farmland that just got scraped and they've dropped sod over top of it just feels kind of weird in that regard. But I figure it's probably why I'm supposed to be in this little neighborhood.
I was thinking you'll be good for it.
For the short term. And so staying here in Northwest Arkansas. I am actually headed back to Montana. I'm going to start driving on Monday. To spend a couple weeks back there packing and purging and putting everything in a moving truck and coming back here. And then I have to wait for us to sell our place in Montana before I can do anything else. So I figured, well, I just need to go somewhere. I'm here. I like it here. I'll get a rental here and see how I like it over a little bit longer period of time, and then have a little bit of time to, figure out exactly what I want to do next. I have some ideas, but I also don't want to have too many ideas all at once while I'm in the middle of still trying to just get settled and make all those changes. So that's what's happening with me. So
thanks.
Yeah. Grace says, has anyone heard of pets dying? Sorry, we're going to run a little long, you guys, today with this business question or business discussion after this. But has anyone heard of pets dying when you raise the frequency on your land? Like their work is done and they need to move on. We lost a rabbit suddenly yesterday, just a couple days after introducing an orgone device. And I've been wondering if there's a connection. That's a good question. I mean, I think in general, animals know, right? Like in fact, have you listened to that episode I did with Tracy Rainwaters when we talked about animals? Yes. Okay. Work on the land. Yeah, I think that they have a sense. I mean, I don't know if it was directly correlated, like, oh, the vibration shift and they didn't want to shift with it. And they felt like their work was done. But you might give it a week or so for the kind of physical transition and then tune in and see if you can chat with the rabbit and see if you get any more insight about it. I don't know. Has anybody else had that experience specifically? No. sorry about your bunny. It's always sad. All right. Okay. All right. We're at the 3 o'clock mark, or for me, 3 o'clock. Shall we talk business? All right, feel free if you're not interested to jump off, but for those of you who want to stay on, I will throw it to Jan first since she had brought up the discussion, and it sounds like Val has questions too. So, and if anybody else, I will share whatever I can. Or anybody else is welcome to chime in too.
There we go.
Take it away, Jan.
So I've had a business before. My new endeavor is I'm going to be starting a nonprofit called the Balance and Healing Network. And so, Amy, all of your systems seem to work together so well. So specifically, I'd have to say, if we're thinking about your emails, mail list, Zoom, which is probably started part of your email list, calendar, and platforms, are those all individual, or have you found a miracle platform that helps you with all of those?
I have almost a miracle platform after a lot of years and a lot of different platforms, and all of these platforms cost money, as you know. And, they don't all talk to each other, and then you need things to make them talk to each other and whatever. So the system that I use now is called FG. It's Funnel Gorgeous, FG Funnels. If anybody's ever used ClickFunnels, it's similar to that, but it's run by these two women entrepreneurs, one of which who used to work for ClickFunnels. And they have their own online business and they understand what's needed. And so it's like the landing pages for people to sign up to your email list. They have an email system. It has calendaring. It has membership site. Like when you go onto my website and you log in to get, to look at the Earth Tenders Academy, like stuff, that's all in FG Funnels. What else is in there? I'm still using ConvertKit, which is a separate email software, only because I really like it. And I haven't, when I joined FG Funnels, it was brand new. I was like one of the first, 200 people to join. And so I didn't totally trust their email system yet. And like email, I don't know if you all know, email is really important for me. That's where I like do most of my communicating and most of my interaction, or I'm probably most consistent. And I just didn't quite trust moving to a totally new system and having anything break. So I'm still on ConvertKit, but I'll probably at some point migrate over because I'm paying, for email on both systems right now. But that's the one I use. I don't know what it costs now. It's probably gotten more expensive over the last couple of years, but if you are building an online business, that's what ends up happening is you're like, oh, email is, $100 a month. Landing page software is $100 a month. Like my checkout cart software is $100 a month, right? Like everything just starts stacking and adding up. And so when you can combine some of them and they actually work and they work together, which is, another hurdle sometimes, that's really nice. So, and you will at some point save money by putting them all together.
And have you found that at this point, the FG Funnels, that all those three things that you just said, it's for one price, or it's like an add-on thing still?
No, it's a flat fee. Maybe the email, you might have to pay extra for the email. I can't remember. But yeah, all of the otherwise you need a calendar system or a booking system. If you're having people like actually book appointments with you, right? That's a whole nother system. And I'm pretty sure they can do, I'm not using obviously like the calendar system. There's a few things in there that they have that I don't use.
So you have the option not to opt out of some of those.
Yeah, some of it, but a lot of it's just bundled like this. You're just paying for the system. So if you only needed one or two of those things, it might not be a solution for you right now, but you could, in the future. But if you're already going to have to set all those things up and you need 3 or 4 or 5 different kinds of functionality, you might as well get something that does everything.
And have you built your email list solely through your website? What are the ways that you've built that email list? Because that seems so important.
Yeah, primarily I've built the email. Well, a little bit. The podcast drives a lot of people to my email list, but by and large, I have built it over the years through Facebook ads. The reality is if you're going to build something online, right? Like, or you're going to make money, well, if you're going to make money doing anything, if you're going to make money on the internet, right? Like you have to find ways to talk to new people on a regular basis. That's just how it is. So you need, you have to be growing your audience, because you're also going to have a certain number of people every month that are like, I don't want to be on your list anymore, and they unsubscribe. And so the question is, how do you want to find those new people? And you cannot pay for it. This is how I look at it anyway. You cannot pay for it with ads. But then that means you need to use your time creating as much content as possible to be in as many places as you can to reach as many people as you can. So you're going to need to go, whatever that is, going on other people's podcasts as a guest, doing reels on Instagram every day, doing, being on Facebook, whatever. And I'm in those other places, but I don't have to be as consistent. Or if I disappear off of Facebook for 10 days because I'm busy, like the ads are still going. And so to me, Facebook is a very affordable way to reach new people. And although the ads situation has come and gone, there was a whole year where I just quit advertising because they changed all their parameters and it wasn't working for me. And I was like, I'm just lighting money on fire. I'm not going to do this. And then they kind of like settled down after about a year and I went back to it. And it seems to work really well. The one thing they're really good at is knowing a lot about us, like it or not. And so they're really good at serving the ads to people who would be interested in what I'm talking about. So,
and where does it push when you do a Facebook ad? Where does it direct them to your website, to your Facebook group? How do they?
No, the way I have it set up is that I have a free private podcast. I don't know if anybody's seen this or like came to me in this way, but basically the ad is promoting like, hey, do you want to learn how to communicate with nature? I have a free private podcast that you can listen to and I'll tell you about it, right? And so if you say, yes, I'm interested, or learn more, or whatever, you click on the ad, it takes you to a landing page. And that page is hosted by FG Funnels, right? And so then that page is like, hey, here's who I am, and here's what you're going to learn in this private podcast series. And if you sign up, you're going to sign up for my email list, and you're going to receive that. And so now you're on my email list, you get an email that says, hey, here's who I am. Here's the link to the private podcast. If you don't ever want to hear from me again, feel free to unsubscribe, but you're going to get a few emails from me over the next few days. I'm going to share more about the Earth Tenders Academy with you. And there's like a series of automated emails that go out.
That you have nothing to do with. It's just it just goes once they click on that FG, that's all through that platform. And it's just
I created it once. Yeah. And it all runs in the background without, without me doing anything on a daily basis.
Excellent. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. So, and again, like lots of trial and error to get to there, but yeah, so that runs. So then, a certain number of people will say, yeah, I'm interested in Earth Tenders Academy, like right away. But most people like want to get to know me better, right? Want to know more about me, and so at the end of that first series of emails that go out, the system transfers you onto my main newsletter list, and then you're just going to get emails from me when I send out, newsletter emails that goes to everybody on my list.
And you just click say I want this to go to everybody, and you do that within the format of FG Funnels.
I go in and like type the email, and I decide, like there's, lots of emails that I say, don't send this to anyone in the Earth Tenders Academy, right? Because I'm promoting Earth Tenders Academy and you're already in it. So there's lots of emails you'll never see, and so I can pick and choose if there's certain, groups of people that I want emails to go to.
And so you are so good about answering. I just wondered how in the world you have the bandwidth, because you seem to answer emails. So do you just see a certain amount of emails, or how do you?
Sometimes I know, probably I'm like, I feel like I reply to a lot of emails saying, sorry for the delay. Sorry it took me so long. Sorry.
But you see literally all the emails that come through.
Yeah, if you reply to my email, it drops in like directly into my inbox.
Okay.
So yeah, I get them, and it depends. Sometimes I get a little overwhelmed. Or sometimes, I get an email that's like this long and I'm like, oh, this is like a lot to manage. So yeah, I just try and kind of work my way through it as I have the energy and bandwidth, you know, when it's, I mean, I'm sure everybody here can relate too, right? Like sometimes I see an email and I'm like, this is going to take a lot of my energy, right? Like some are, oh, I can answer this really quickly. And others, I'm like, I have to be in the right, you know, by Jenny Lee. I have to be in the right frame of mind and the right space to answer some of these. So
But
sometimes
that's exactly what I'm asking. You have a choice you just see it all and then you just have to work through it. There's no filter system that you get. If they answer, it drops into your personal email.
Yeah. Yep. So I can get a little out of control in there sometimes.
Okay. So one other thing here, you mentioned the podcast, and I know you've gone through several podcast formats. Who are you like now? Are you YouTube or what are you doing now?
The last couple of months, I've done nothing, if anyone has noticed. I've done a lot of things, but not.
You probably have a preference still if you were
I'm
going
just
to.
trying to keep the train on the tracks right now. Yeah, I'm trying. I've actually finished a couple of podcast interviews, so I need to get like some intros written and recorded and get them edited so I can get them out. But I like once I switch to doing podcast seasons, like that works better for me because I can really focus and work on it for like a couple of months and then take a break. Like when I was trying to do an episode every week all year long, it was just like it felt like every week came around and I'm like, oh, I need a new idea and I need a topic and I have to sit down and do it. And so now it feels better that I'm like, okay, I have an idea and a concept and a topic, and I'm gonna focus on it for a couple of months, and then I'll take a break. And so, so that seems to be what's working. And I kind of do a combo, you know, of like solo episodes and interview episodes, and then that way it's not all on me to do all of the content all of the time.
Right. And I guess what I was really asking is what format do you drop them to several formats like YouTube or Google or
Oh yeah. So I use a hosting service called Libsyn, Libsyn.
LIBS?
And Libsyn, I don't even totally know how it works. I have a podcast editor that actually does this part. But I get the sense that once you upload it, it just gets distributed. Like initially I had to sign up for the different places it could go. But once she uploads the episode, it just gets distributed to all the different platforms. It doesn't go to YouTube. I upload to YouTube. And I like that, you know, YouTube, I started doing it because YouTube said, oh, we have podcasts now. And like, we're going to push podcasts in the feed to people. I'm like, all right, well, I have these recordings anyway. Like I might as well upload them. But like, do I feel like I'm getting a ton more views on my podcast episodes? Not really, but I just know that there's people who prefer YouTube and would rather go sit and watch something than listen to it. So I'm just giving people the option to do either.
All right, so here's my last question, then I'll open it up to somebody else. But you said several times that you have a helper who does that. You have just one person, and what does she do for you? Just that?
Well, I guess you could say I have two helpers. I have a podcast editor, who just goes through and like cleans up all the audio, makes it sound decent, and then she like uploads it and makes sure it's on my website. And so I'm only working with her when I'm doing podcast episodes. And then Tiffany, probably a lot of you have emailed with or interacted with, is my like virtual assistant helper. She does a variety of different things. So she actually, when I got on FG Funnels and it was totally new, she decided, because she does this for people, right? Like I'm not her only client. She decided that she really liked the platform and wanted to learn, and she got fully certified on FG Funnels, which is nice because I kind of don't know that much about it as far as like the tech side of things. Anything tech related, she takes care of. Anybody who emails and says, I'm not getting emails, what's my password, whatever, anything tech related, she takes care of that. Things that are in my email that I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Can you look that up? Or, somebody's payment didn't go through, like she goes through to follow up on payments that get missed.
I didn't get my mug.
I didn't get my mug. Yeah. She takes care of the mugs altogether. I order them and send them to her house. She keeps, they live at her house and she sends them out. What else does she do? we've gone back and forth with different things over the years, and I just find a lot of times I'm like, in the time it takes me to explain what I need done, I can just get it done. So I tend to like do all the emails myself. Like if I'm going to type up the email, I might as well just having her transfer it to to the email system. So yeah, mostly tech stuff is what she handles. And yeah, anytime I've tried different like email, well, from getting overwhelmed from email for a while, I was like, can you read all my emails and just tell me what what I need to reply? And that never, like, that always was, even just slowed me down even more in responding to things. So I finally kind of got to a point where I can reply to my emails now. So yeah,
Okay.
I think that's primarily
Thank you. Thank you so much. Those are all such helpful things. And I know you've done it a while, and I get to benefit from any of your sideways or misgivings or mistakes.
There's been a lot of different iterations over the years, and it's constantly, it's still changing, right? There's still I'm working on revamping that welcome series right now, the kind of initial emails that you get. So Grace says, what website host do you use? I use GoDaddy for my website.
And I'm looking at WordPress right now.
Yeah, it's WordPress on GoDaddy is where I bought the domain, and that's who hosts the website, I guess you could say. I don't know all the right terminology, but then WordPress is like the framework that it's built on.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah. All right, Val, what questions do you have? Or did we cover that?
I just had a couple. One was that I walked into a situation once where it was very overwhelming, like you were saying earlier, that there was a lot of layers going on. So I've structured my business to where I will do a scan, usually a day or two before. So I'll tap into the energy. I don't do any major work, just to be able to assess what I'm walking into. So I'm just not going in there blind. So I was curious about what you thought about that. And I also have been led for the most part to, after the readings, kind of go over the readings with the client in person. And I think from maybe a couple of episodes on the podcast or something, that maybe I interpreted that you will sometimes just send a report. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts on that are, because yeah, mostly I've just been doing in person, and I don't, of course, go into every single little detail. I write a full report within 24 to 72 hours, but I was just curious as to what your thoughts on that, on both of those things are.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of doing an initial scan, because also I find that sometimes the spirits are starting to come to me ahead of time, right? Like even with my boundaries and my setup or whatever, that they'll like kind of hanging around, or they're kind of tapping in, or they're waiting, right? And so if you do it that way, especially if something is a little more overwhelming, like it gives you the opportunity also to be like, okay, I hear you, I'll be there in 3 days, right? Like, but leave me alone until then.
Yeah, or this might take more than one reading. Like this
right?
I can't do this all at once. This is like a 200-year-old house or whatever,
Yeah, and you're doing most of your readings in person, right?
Yes, I do a scan virtually and then I go in person.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the time and like you like to do it that way, I think that's a great idea, because especially in person, for me, in person feels so much more distracting too, right? Like I have all of the visual input in addition to the energetic input that I don't have. It's why I kind of like doing them remotely, because then I'm like, there's nothing distracting me or making me go ooh, like while I'm in that space. So yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I think if you're doing that, and or there might be things that you can just like handle or get out of the way right away if that's something that needs to happen. Remind me what your second question was.
Second question was
we both have to remember now.
Anybody? No, my brain just totally shut off. Telling the client in person, like
yes,
giving them the information in person versus just doing a report.
Yeah, I mean, again, completely up to you and what feels comfortable to you. part of why, well, I don't even know why I set it up the way that I did. So yeah, initially all I did was write a report. Like I never talked or interacted with the person at all other than email. Like we would go back and forth in email or they would give me feedback or whatever. And it was just a written report. And then at some point I was like, I want to record I just want to talk, right? That just felt easier to me. But in both cases, I feel like I do them when I'm still kind of in the energy, right? Like I've cut my cords, I've done all that, but like I can still feel the energy. And sometimes it's like clarifications are coming in as also I like typing. But the speaking works too, where it's just like the clarifications and the things are still coming in a way where while I'm still right in that space, it's easier for me. And if I were to do it 2 days later, I wouldn't feel it quite in the same way, or I'd have to kind of like tap back into to feel it again. So that's why I just like to do it like I did the reading, I'm going to do either the report or the video right away. So
That's amazing. And I didn't even think of doing it like that because I just scribble because I'm like in such a meditative state that I'm just like scribbling and writing and drawing and it didn't I think I'm such a perfectionist that writing the report afterwards is like kind of what I have to do for my perfectionist brain because I have to make sure everything's like grammatically correct and I've included every single detail and I've got all the research that I've done from like the nearby waterway and so I think
right.
that's why that worked for me is to appease my perfectionism. But I think that's really smart maybe to write even more of the main details and see if anything else comes in instead of having to re-tap back in. So that gives me a lot to think about. Thank you. That's very helpful.
You're welcome. Yeah, I just noticed that's how I work in general, even if I'm like, back when I was writing blog posts or when I'm or people say like, why do you write out your podcast episodes? It's like, well, because I'm channeling it. Like the information's coming in while I'm writing, right? It's just easier for me to do it that way because it's still like just flowing in that space. So that's how I do it. But again, like whatever is comfortable for you, whatever works for you is going to be what you're going to be able to sustain. And don't be afraid to change it, right? Like I said, like you do it for a while one way, and then I don't remember why I changed how I did it, but at some point I was like, I don't like typing these anymore. I want to just talk and explain better sometimes some of the things or be able to say it like the spirit said it to me, right?
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. All right.
So do you send your clients an audio?
I get on Zoom and I hit record and I just start talking and then I just send them the recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a couple questions.
Sure. Jump on in.
The first one's not really business related, but as you're traveling around, what are you using for internet?
Starlink.
Okay, that's what I was gonna.
Yeah. It really it works great. I really have not. I mean, unless I've been in a super obscured location. There's only been one campground I was in that there was way too much tree cover, and luckily that campground had fantastic internet. Probably for that reason, they probably got a lot of, like would have a lot of complaints if they didn't. So otherwise, the Starlinks worked everywhere I've been.
Does that mean you have a dish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the just sitting. It's on a little stand. It sits out there in the.
They're like yay big.
Yeah, it's like a rectangle.
Yeah.
Like exactly that big, and I have the there's a power outlet in my compartment. And so I bought this little like wire basket. I don't know what it was supposed to be for, but it's just a little wire basket. And I like bolted it to the wall next to the outlet and set the router in there. And so the whole thing can just stay out there. It's not like in here anywhere, and it works fine.
Cool. When you first built your website, did you have anybody help you design it or build it out?
When I first did it, no, I think I just like clunkily, poked around and figured it out and kind of taught myself WordPress, which, sometimes works better than other times, or something would break and I wouldn't know why it was broken. Tiffany's been able to help me off and on, but the current iteration of it, I bought the theme from wherever. I don't remember if it was like, I don't think it was Etsy. It might have been like, Theme Forest or one of those places. And then I started working on it, and I realized that it was going to be more customization than I thought. So I just messaged the theme creator and said, hey, what would you charge? Like, I know exactly what I want it to look like or what the layout to be. What would you charge to do that? And it was like $200 or something. I'm like, great. Like, this is going to take me like 47 hours. Like, happily pay you $200 or whatever. Like, it was a minimal amount for like what I wanted done. And I'm sure it probably took them 2 hours, right? That since they created the theme. So they were able to create the layout the way I wanted it. And once that was done, then I went and populated everything and filled it all out.
Yeah.
Usually the themes have pretty good documentation. We'll like walk you through, like, go here to change your colors, go here to change your font.
Right? Like 7 years ago, I tried to start with WordPress and it was just blank. And I was like,
oh no.
Like, after a year, I was like, and I switched to Wix. So I've had 3 websites on Wix now, and I hate it. I hate it because it's always glitchy and finicky, and it's like does something weird.
Yeah.
A few days ago, for some reason, it stopped recognizing my font in italics. I couldn't put any, and I was like, what is happening? It's like always something stupid like that. But
it's maddening. And mine is, knock on wood, mine's been working for like 2 years or something. And I'm like, I'm never touching this again.
Right.
It's all working. Because I feel like I went through probably a year period of time where it would just like randomly no longer accept my login. I just wouldn't be able to get into my website for like, I couldn't write a blog post. It would be that for like months. And then one day I would put in my login and I would get back. So I always took it as like spirit being like, you don't.
Right. I feel like there's something weird with like spirits right now going on with anything digital for me. Like I deleted my Facebook a year ago.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to use later to be able to post to Instagram to schedule.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have a business Facebook. And even if you're not posting to business Facebook, to post to Instagram, you have to have a business Facebook and have the two connected. Yeah. So I created a new Facebook login. It immediately assumed I was not a real person and blocked my Facebook account. It finally got unlocked. And then like 2 weeks later, it blocked it again. And I'm like,
yeah, it's frustrating. That's why I'm so happy to have Tiffany now, because I just say, please resolve this. I don't know what's happening and I don't want to.
Right, exactly. I don't want to.
Yes, there were many years that I spent doing all of my own troubleshooting and tech support, and it is not fun. But yeah. I had long periods of time where I just like I couldn't get in, but I wasn't really at that point, I wasn't really making any money. I was just like writing blog posts. And so I'd just be like, I guess I'm not writing any blog posts right now. And I would just let it go. But now I have to keep it running. So
well, if this isn't too personal, when you Tiffany, does she submit hours to you as needed, or do you have a contract with her and she just does everything that you need?
Yeah, I have a contract with her. I can't even remember how it's set up now. I think initially we probably had like X number of hours a month, and then I was never getting to that many hours. And so we like cut it back in half. And so it's just a flat fee now that, that I pay her. So it's just like, if I have a busier month, it kind of evens out for the months that I don't ask her to do much.
Okay.
At this point, it's like my security blanket, because she knows so many things that I'm like, if she was gone tomorrow, I'd be like, all right, I have to learn all this like, immediately. So whatever she needs, I'm good.
How did you find her, Tiffany?
I actually posted in the Facebook group that I was looking for somebody, and her mom is in the Earth Tenders Academy. So her mom recommended her. Yeah.
And does anybody have any recommendations for social media managers? Because that's the thing I have struggled, like for 7 years, I have struggled with my business because I struggle with social media.
I know. I haven't had anybody who does that specifically. I don't know if anybody else does, but yeah, I've kind of come to this is me too. I've kind of come to a point where I'm like, email and the podcast are like my critical methods of communication. And then that kind of takes the pressure off social media and lets me feel like I show up when I show up, and when I don't, I don't, and like no horrible things are going to happen. But that's how I've also kind of grown my business over the years. So, and where I put my focus. So if you want to focus on social media, yeah, that's a whole different follow up.
With my website, I started blogging. So I'll post to Pinterest which feels a lot less pressury than like Instagram does. But at the same time, so stop. It's more of a long-term like growth, not some, so.
Yeah, I actually, before I started doing Facebook ads, when I was just blogging, and Pinterest was still relatively new and they didn't have ads on Pinterest yet at this point. Yeah. I had a lot of website traffic and email list growth from Pinterest. Like that was my number one like driver of traffic to my website for a couple of years. And then when they started doing ads, it tanked. And I have over the years, well, actually when Tiffany first started, I was like, can you see if you can get Pinterest going again? Like I thought it was me. I was like, I haven't put as much energy there. I haven't done as much. And we need to make the pins look different. We need to do this. We need to do that. And we worked on it for a year or so before I'm like, I just don't think that they care if you're not advertising at this point. So I'm sure there's still like, I still pin things there and there's still some traffic, but it's nothing like it was.
Yeah.
Gosh, I guess 10 years ago. How is it that long ago?
Right. I know what it's been like 7 or 8 years since we've
Yeah. It's changed a lot. So
yeah,
I don't know.
That's all my questions.
Wow, yeah, thank you. Anybody else?
Well, this is super specific, but I noticed you do a lot on Reels and there's edits and cuts. So do you complete one? You do this on your phone and then you can edit on your phone and send it to Reels?
Well, I don't do a lot of, so I did an experiment last year. It's probably a whole year ago now. I did an experiment where, well, I had good intentions. I was like, what if I do one every day for 2 weeks or something? And I think I made it like 10 days before I was like, yeah, I'm done with this. Because it takes a lot of time to edit those reels when you're, and even if all you're doing, even if you're not like cutting different videos or whatever, and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to hold the camera and talk and record myself. But then you're like, well, now I have to edit it to within the time allotted. And the time allotted on TikTok is different than the time allotted on Instagram, which is different than the time allotted on YouTube Shorts, which is like, so you have to edit it for time. Then you have to add captions to it. You've got to put music on it. You have to figure out the hashtags. You have to have the caption, right? Like it's like a 30-second reel or whatever, and you'll spend 2 hours working on it and then think like, was that the best use of 2 hours of my time? I'm not sure it was. So so probably the ones, if you've seen them, that look like me really doing reels, that was from like a year ago. And since then I've maybe done like, I don't know, 2 or 3. And it's usually because I'm like, oh, I took a cool video and I can put some music on it and call it good, and put it up. But no, I don't make a lot of, I've tried it. Everybody's, oh, everything's on TikTok now. And I'm like, I don't know. It's just not my vibe.
Yeah, me neither.
I think if it's your vibe and you're into it, then like you're gonna grow it, right? Because you're doing it and you're into it and you like I'm on Instagram stories almost every day because I like Instagram stories. People talk to me and I can talk to people, right? Like but I'm not on there every day, talking about the Earthtenders Academy, right? Like if you watch my stories most of the time, I'm like, so here's what I'm doing today. here's a funny thing my cat did, right? Like it's not, it's just my life. But I also think, so that's, I guess you should say, even though it's not a strategy, right? Like that's how I perceive social media, or for me, Instagram stories more than anything is like, if you don't know who I am and you just like came and started following me and you watch my stories, you're going to get a feeling for who I am personally, right? You're going to learn who I am. It's not a business strategy to be there, although sometimes I might talk about those things. That's an opportunity for you to just get to know me and decide if you like me or want to hang out with me or like what I have to say. But there isn't a business strategy around that.
Does anyone have other questions? Because I'll be quiet for a minute.
Any more questions?
Well, I was going to ask you, because I know you've given us so much time, and thank you, Amy, so much for doing this.
Of course, I'm happy to help.
Got a lot of plates in the air. If you had 1 or 2 things that your advice, what it would be as a place like, well, me, but other people, I'm starting this nonprofit and creating a website and want to get exposure for the service.
I mean, start an email list more than anything. I think you always own your email list, unlike your social media following. You know, you can always download the emails and take them to another platform or something. And you know, getting access, for lack of a better term, to somebody's inbox. Now everybody treats their inbox differently, but you know, that's a privilege. Social media, right? Like people are just scrolling by you and they may or may not stop to engage. But somebody who takes a time to read like a thoughtfully written email, like, is so much more engaged with you and what you're doing and what you're creating than anywhere else, most likely. I would say also with starting a nonprofit is getting hard email or hard mailing addresses, right? Like that. And I worked on that for a little while. Actually, I have a list going somewhere, and then I don't know, I got distracted because I was like, oh, wouldn't it be fun? You know, and this was, I think, in the like mid-pandemic timing when, you know, everybody was actually, my Pinterest got shut down at some point, and I was like, uh-oh, am I about to get shut down everywhere? You know, like how bad is this going to be? I'm like, actually, it would be really fun to send out like a quarterly paper newsletter, like a, you know, old school style photocopied on colored paper. You got something in the mail, newsletter. It would just be really fun to do and create anyway. And so I started collecting mailing addresses for a while, and then I don't know, I got busy on other projects and never did it. But I
It
think
seems like in our culture that's almost too intrusive, but I
Right.
like your thinking.
Yeah, well, and I mean, if you're like it or not, like as a nonprofit, like you're going to be asking people for money all the time. You know, that's, well, in business, that's what you're doing anyway, right? But definitely in a nonprofit. And so the opportunity to send mail to people and ask them to, you know, well, I worked in a nonprofit for a while, right? Like that's what we were doing all the time, is mailing to people and saying, fill out this form and mail it back to me with your check. Because there's a lot of people that are still, you know, that's how they're going to engage with you, hear about your work, hear about the, you know, the good work that you're doing in the world, and want to participate. So
well, and the big difference between a nonprofit is I can have people donate on the website where you don't really have that option.
Right. Yeah, well, it's just, yeah.
I like that idea. That's kind of fun. But then I'm 70 something.
Yes, but I mean, I don't know. I think about that too. Like, how much fun mail do I get? Not that much, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of felt the same way. Like that would be kind of, I remember when I used to get newsletters in the mail. Maybe people would enjoy that, or like pass it along to somebody else, or put it up on their bulletin board, or do, you know, who knows, something and engage and connect, you know, with you in a different way than all of the digital ways that we connect.
Well, exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was so good to see everybody. Thank you for being here and hanging through to the end. And yeah, maybe we'll just have to like have a quarterly business chat or something for everybody who wants to chat business.
I'm glad I converted the time zone right this week or this
Yes,
month.
good, wonderful.
I believe I did that last month.
I keep getting very confused because my messaging has always been the time Mountain Time, and then I've been adjusting while I'm in Central Time. And the other day, I was confirming a podcast interview and said, whatever time it was, like, I'll see you at noon Mountain or whatever. And then like 10 minutes beforehand, I was like, oh no, I'm noon Central. Like, I'm going to mess up other people now because I don't know what time it is. So yes, I'm glad we've all worked it out. So wonderful. Well, everybody have a wonderful rest of the day, wonderful rest of March. I will see you from Montana in a couple of weeks.
All right. Bye, Amy. Thanks.
All right.
Bye. Thank you. It was so
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you. Bye.